Welcome back to Woodland Rambling. This time, it's about dying light and what causes the variations of the infected in the second game. So buckle up, make sure you have a UV light and snacks, and let's get this started. Let's first discuss the virus itself and its two variants, the Huron virus and the tachy-transmissive Huron virus. We'll mostly be focusing on the second one because that's what's in the second game, but it's not bad to look at the first one if you're curious. The tachy-transmissive Huron virus, or THV, is a more deadly and more infectious variant of the Huron virus. It escaped a level 4 GRE lab in Geneva, Switzerland, which is considered ground zero of the outbreak, in October 2021, killing 98% of the global human population, with those that survived turning into monsters or fighting for their lives nearly every night. The virus causes respiratory illness, high fevers, and then physical and mental decline, followed by a gruesome death. The THV virus is the strain that's featured in Dying Light 2, as opposed to the original strain which shows up in Dying Light 1. Let's look at those symptoms as described in the many posters and posts that we find around the city. Stage 1, flu-like symptoms, severe coughing, respiratory congestion, profuse sweating, dilated pupils, fever, body aches, and chills. So you'd think you have the flu. Stage 2, the body develops ultra-hyperplexia, which is a fever of 41 Celsius or higher, but it rises to 43 Celsius high, which can cause brain death. Increased delirium, physical degeneration, and it begins to form skin lesions. Stage 3 is where the physical degradation accelerates, manifesting in muscle spasms and seizures. The subject usually loses the ability to speak. Stage 4 is the turning point, where you are no longer human, and the mutations become irreversible, and you turn into a viral. Now that we know how the virus functions and what it does to the human body, let's discuss the mutations. In the game itself, we are introduced to the idea that variations of the infected only showed up after the Black Monday bombing. For some background about the Black Monday bombing, this was when they dropped a chemical, usually referred to as the THV chemical, onto Villador's main city and the sub-city, or what is considered the Old City. This was supposed to be a cure. Obviously, seeing as the game takes place 5 years later, after this, it didn't work. After this is around when we start seeing the mutations. We can link this back to the first game, in which we did not see mutations until after one of the doctors started experimenting with bolter meat. As we are told by the game developers, the volatile is considered the central mutation point, which is horrifying if you think about it. That means that every specialized infected we see, which is a lot, at some point was a volatile. Which, okay, let's think about that for a second with our critical thinking cap. Some infected are much too small and or much too large to have been volatiles, unless magically all of their bones changed and they either lost flesh or got more flesh. I believe it is slightly different than the explanation that we are given. It is really well known that Techland has given explanations that have no continuity for their games, so this is kind of a widely debated point. I believe that yes, the initial mutation stems from the chemical itself, which is a proven fact. However, after a viral is exposed to a specific strain of the chemical, this is where I think the path diverges. I do not think every specialized infected comes from a volatile, because it makes no sense. Say an infected remains out of the sunlight for an extended period of time, specifically a viral. This has one of two mutation paths, as far as I believe. It can follow and either become a volatile or what is known as a revenant. However, if it were to become a revenant, it would have to be in a GRE location. That is the only place that we can find revenants in the game. If it then remained out of the sun and was in any other area, it would become a volatile. At least that's what we saw in the first game, and I'm assuming that it's the same for the second, because we can find volatile nests in the second game. For something like the drowner, obviously the body would have to be submerged in water. I don't think there's really anything special other than it being submerged. You could go the extra mile and say that drowners can only be created in THV chemical water. But that's a stretch, and I don't think that's exactly the case. I would assume that if we are looking at something like the goon, or the elemental goon, or the demolisher, that would either have to be a person who is massive in life, think like a sumo wrestler sized person, which are kind of uncommon, or it would have to be multiple infected fused together. Banshees, as far as we are aware, are our only female specific infected. So we know that they have to come from women. And I would go as far as to say they were people who were screaming when they were turning, or they had extremely strong vocal cords. This is one where we really don't know what caused it. It's an unknown, and there is no good explanation that you can find in the game, on the wiki, or wherever you're looking. Now, if we are looking at a spitter, that one's a little easier to disconcert. It was most likely a viral that ingested THV chemicals, most likely in their throat, because they're the only ones that we see that can spit acid, and that acid has a similarity to the THV chemicals. Side note, I know I just said that they're the only ones that we see that can spit acid. I was wrong. I forgot volatiles can spit acid. Overall, this isn't every single type of infected that we see in the game because there are so many variations. I could spend an entire day just listing off the different types of mutations. However, it is safe to assume that the environment is the definite determinant on what a viral becomes. If it stays out in the sun, it's biter. If it ends up in the dark, it's volatile or red. If it's in the water, it's a drown. And so on and so forth. Overall, I really do think that the explanation that's given by Techland is not a proper explanation and was just rushed to fill out. I believe that there is a tree-like stage of evolution that comes with the virus when exposed to THV chemicals. Side note discussion after filming. Hi, what do you think the infected in Geneva are like? Since that is the ground zero, it does not have THV chemicals. Do you think that there are expanded, specialized types of infected that happen to be there and nowhere else in the world? Let me know.